This is the recipe for my vegetarian confetti chili. Now the reason I call it confetti chili is because it's very colorful, and it's colorful because it's full of a lot of colorful vegetables, and I use also an assortment of chili beans. Start a fire under a large stock pot or stew pot, something big enough to hold all those ingredients. I think it's about a 2 gallon, something like that, gallon and a half. First thing you're going to want to do is dice up your onions, as I said, and put a fire under your pot. Then add a couple tablespoons of oil. I would say 1 tablespoon of canola oil and maybe 1 tablespoon of olive oil just for flavor. Now here, you don't mind putting a little oil into this dish because there isn't really any fat because there's no meat. So you could, add a little bit more oil. It doesn't matter. But I start with that. Put your diced onions in and stir them up till they're nicely coated, and let them simmer for a good couple of minutes, 3, 4, even 5 minutes. But just be careful that they don't burn, and be careful that you're just doing kind of a sweat, and that means you want to make the onions get just nice and soft. And when they get to that point, then they start to bring all the sugars out and they get kind of sweet, and that's what you're looking for. While the onions are doing their sweat, just be sure to stir them periodically so they don't burn and so they get coated nicely. While they're doing that, you can go and start chopping your carrots. You may or may not want to use carrots, but if you're going to use carrots, you need to put them in pretty early into the process because they're pretty firm and you want to get them at least softened up a bit to where they're a little more comfortable to eat. But I don't like any of my vegetables terribly soft. But let's get started with the carrots. So I dice the carrots into fairly small pieces because, again, they'll cook more thoroughly, they'll cook faster. And I like the color that they bring to the chili, and also that they bring a little crunch to the chili if you don't make them too soft. Cut up your 3 carrots, good-sized carrots. You might want to cut them in each of them in half, then cut them lengthwise, and then bring all your lengths together and cut them into small sort of 1/4 inch kind of pieces. Now, you can add them on top of the onions once your onions look the way you want them to look. Then give them a little mix and mix them in with the onion so that everything is coated with the oil very nicely and kind of glistening. Now you can go back and cut your green pepper and red pepper. Wash it first, take off any labels. I typically cut them in half, pull the seeds out, cut the top off. I save the little bit around the top that's red or green and just get rid of the stem. Cut the pepper a few times lengthwise and get rid of that white membrane on the inside because that tends to be just a little bit bitter. So just if there's a white membrane on the inside of the pepper in maybe 3 or 4 spots, just sort of trim that out. Then take your lengths and cut them, hold them together and cut them into maybe 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch pieces. I like kind of a nice, good sized piece of pepper because it's good when you're eating it and you get an actual pepper flavor. And again, these are sweet peppers, so they're nice to get. So once you've done that, you can add them to the pot. And in the pot now, you should have your onions, your carrots, and your pepper. You can give that a stir till everything is sort of nicely coated. If it looks like it needs a little bit more oil, you might just drizzle a little oil on top. Just, keep it glistening, but you don't want it swimming in oil. The next step is to add your celery. Now, the celery could be added either before or after the green pepper, but either way, you want that right about at this point. Again, the celery is a little bit firm, and you want to try to get that cooked up a little bit. So cut your celery into small pieces and add that to the pot and give that a nice stir. And now you should have your onion, pepper, carrots, celery. I think that's it, right? And that should be looking pretty vegetable-y, like a nice little pot of vegetables all covered with oil, and you give it a couple of stirs and just keep it simmering for a while. Now you should be maybe 10 or 15 minutes into the process at this point, and everything should be covered nicely. Now somewhere along the line, you could just let this just sit for a while you go and open your cans of beans. Now you're going to have 1 can of black beans, 1 can of red beans, 1 can of pink beans. You could use any brand, doesn't matter to me. I put those into a colander and I rinse them very thoroughly because there's a lot of that sort of mucky stuff inside of the can. I don't know what that stuff is, but I pretty much don't want to eat it. So I rinse out all of that liquid that's in the can and rinse off the beans, and the beans should be looking pretty nice once you do that. Now, once the beans are rinsed, you can pour those into the pot and give everything a good stir. Now, once that's there, you can go and open up your cans of diced tomatoes and your can of sauce. And the next thing you will add is your one can of diced tomatoes and 1 can of tomato sauce, and give that a stir. Now, this is where I can't tell you for sure. You need to kind of take a look. It depends how much vegetable you've used and so on. But at this point, you want everything to look pretty wet with the tomato sauce and the liquid from the tomatoes. And if it looks like it's still kind of dry and looks like it needs a little bit more sauciness, then go ahead and add a second can of diced tomatoes, which is what I did while making this recipe that I'm talking about today. So this recipe today is calling for 2 cans of diced tomatoes, 1 can of tomato sauce, and then rinse out the tomato sauce can with, maybe about 1/4 of the can or half a can of water in there. Just rinse it out and dump that in, and that'll give you a little liquid, because as the chili cooks, it's going to start to lose liquid, so it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of water at this point. Now, your chili should start looking like chili about now. As far as how much liquid is in there, you're going to have to eyeball that and kind of see if you like your chili kind of soupy or if you like it kind of thick. I like it kind of in between, so that's what I'm aiming for. If you do think it needs a little bit more water, then add water maybe about 1/4 of a cup at a time until you feel like it looks about the way you want it to look. Now you want to start adding your herbs. I would start with the cilantro. The cilantro, I bought this by the bunch, and it was, whatever a bunch of cilantro is, I'm not quite sure. It was kind of a smaller, medium-sized bunch. I used half of it, and I'm not quite sure how much that is, but when I cut it up, it turned out to be about 3/4 of a cup of fresh cilantro in a 1 cup measuring cup. So that looks about right. Cut it up. I remove most of the stems from the bottom end, and then try to get as much leaf as possible. Chop it up pretty roughly, then add that to the mix. On top of that, you'll want to add your chili powder. Now, the chili powder is pretty much the thing that adds the flavor to your chili. It's not terribly hot, but it is sort of a mix of spices. So it doesn't so much add heat, in spite of the name chili powder. It really is not as hot as you might think it is, but it's more spicy, maybe a little bit peppery, a little bit of chili flavor in there. I would start with 1 good tablespoon, and then see a little later how you like the taste. I tend to go with a little bit more than that, maybe 1.5 tablespoons, even 2 tablespoons, but then it will start to get pretty spicy. So that you'll have to do from experience and see how spicy it. So the next thing you're going to want to do is add your red pepper flakes, and that's where you're really going to get the heat. I started today with 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and that's going to make a pretty medium hot pot of chili. So it's going to be something where you're going to definitely know there's some red chili in there. So 1 teaspoon of red chili flakes, and maybe 1 good tablespoon or 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder. So I think that's a good place to start. You can also do a couple of grinds of pepper, and I don't use a lot of salt, and the chili powder has a lot of sort of saltiness to it, but you can put a pinch of salt in as well, especially if you like your things a little bit more salty. With that added, I would just give that all a good stir, and you're really just about home free at this point. So now you've got all your ingredients loaded into the pot. Keep your flame at medium or below, somewhere between low and medium, but you'd never want it to really be boiling. You just want it to be at a nice simmer all along. Now, once you've let your chili simmer for quite a while, maybe 30, 40 minutes, even an hour is good. In fact, I usually do keep it on for about an hour, sometimes even a little bit longer on a simmer. The longer you simmer these ingredients, the more they come together. Now, after it's been on for a little while and it's simmering, and a little while I mean 5 minutes or something like that, and you've got it up to a little simmer, that's when I like to add the frozen corn. I like to add the corn towards the end so that it keeps its brightness and doesn't get overcooked and mushy. And serve it in a bowl with a dollop of sour cream, and you're good to go. Now you've learned how to make Reno's Confetti Vegetarian Chili. Enjoy!